Greetings, Pete Murray with Dense Networks. I'm here with Mike Zeto, General Manager of AT&T Smart Cities Initiative. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, Peter, thanks for having me. Appreciate
We're delighted. We're atop the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, and we're here to talk about AT&T and the Smart City program. Mike, Smart Cities, Atlanta was designated as one of the three major cities. Can you tell us a little bit about why Atlanta?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Atlanta has a burgeoning innovation ecosystem, a very forward-thinking government, and we've got all the right components of the ecosystem here to truly create the smartest city in the United States.
Okay, well, we've certainly observed that a little bit going around and talking to other people. What are the components that make up the smart city in general, and then what is Atlanta doing particularly well?
Yeah, so if you think about a smart city, a smart city is really a city that uses technology to connect people, processes, and assets to drive operational efficiencies, improve public safety, drive sustainability initiatives, preserve natural resources, and then truly create a better living environment for citizens and for the businesses that the city serves, right? Because those are the city's customers. And Atlanta has done a really good job focusing on a few key areas that you would associate with a city becoming smarter, like mobility, right? So from a mobility perspective, how do you drive operational efficiencies around traffic and transportation, right? Pedestrian and bicycle, right? And create an environment that is conducive for citizens to navigate around the city, to work or to play. They're focused on public safety. So how do you create a safer environment? And using IoT technology and cameras and the cellular networks to create a safer environment. They're focused on economic development initiatives and how do you actually use smart cities to create an economic development environment that encourages investment in the region and allows for companies to grow and to participate. The startup ecosystem, participating with smart city initiatives to grow their businesses and add value. And then of course, you have that, the sustainability and the environmental impact of becoming a smarter city. If you reduce traffic, you're going to reduce greenhouse emissions, right? If you have less vehicles on the road because city vehicles are using sensors on waste management containers and don't go to collect the trash unless the container's full, it reduces traffic and reduces emissions. So, at the end of the day, there's really four key areas that the city's focused on, and they're leading the way, right? Mm-hmm. So it's great to partner with them and all the others that are participating in the ecosystem here to really drive Atlanta forward to become the smartest city in the US. And frankly, I think we have the opportunity to become one of the smartest cities globally.
Well, we are profiling smart cities and looking what's being done, and clearly Atlanta is a leader. So what we're really trying to put our finger on is what is the secret sauce in the public-private cooperation? We just attended this meeting with the mobility task force
Sure.
here. Tremendous dynamic. So what is the secret sauce that makes this city different?
Yeah, so it's interesting because Atlanta is very unique in the sense that it's a big, small city, right? And that's one of the great things about Atlanta. That's what everybody loves. It's you've got the southern hospitality, but you also have all the other components of a large city here, right? You've got access to funding. You've got a great R&D university, or a few of them, frankly, with Georgia Tech and with Emory, and even Georgia State now participating in this. You've got the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, which is regional, pulling together all of the different disparate pieces of the Atlanta ecosystem to get them to focus on one common objective. And then of course you've got an active mayor, right, and an active city council and their support with the ACP, which is the mayor's group of CEOs that supports him, and he goes to and looks to for strategic advice around specific initiatives in the city. And so between all of these entities working together sort of as one, we've seen a really strong push by Atlanta to really move things forward.
Okay, so you've got the right environment, and you mentioned something critical, the university participation.
Yeah.
We saw downstairs at the meeting earlier, you had Coca-Cola, Georgia Pacific. I mean, it's pretty incredible, the weight behind this. So we saw Coke, for instance, monetizing IoT and getting efficiencies. What are the corporations benefiting from the initiatives for smart cities?
Yeah, so in a lot of cases, they're actually piloting technologies that they want to use to drive efficiencies in their business here first. And then, you also have these large corporations like Coca-Cola, UPS, AT&T, right? You've got NCR and many others that are here locally, 20 plus Fortune 500 companies here in Atlanta that are frankly working with the R&D universities and the startup ecosystem that's been developed here to drive value, right? That's related to IoT and frankly to smart cities, right? So, the large companies receive a lot of benefit from, again, that big small city and having the innovation here in either being able to pilot initiatives that they want to test to drive efficiencies in their business, or to allow smaller, more innovative companies, or frankly partner with some of the larger Fortune 500 companies that are here, right? I mean, we create environments like this mobility task force that the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce has put together, and you've got the CEOs, CIOs, or CTOs of the largest companies in the area coming together in an informal environment to really talk about how mobile technology and IoT can drive value for their businesses, right? So when they're in informal settings like that, and they're pulled together every quarter, they tend to come up with their own ideas to work together. So you're starting to see a lot of the large companies work together as well, which is, again, there's not many cities in the United States that could boast that they've got that many companies working that closely together right there in their own region.
Yeah, well, what are the critical skill sets then that AT&T is bringing to the table to help enable this next wave of the smart city?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And if you think about AT&T traditionally, you would think network, right?
Yes.
So,
I know Mike's background is in software.
That's right, and my background is in software. So I was actually the CEO of a startup that was brought to Atlanta. I deployed the capital here, I grew the business, I sold the business, and then went to work for AT&T. And now I started and ran this emerging business, Smart Cities, for us globally. I think, for AT&T, from AT&T's perspective, the thread that's weaved through all of the smart city solutions that get deployed that drive value is network. You've got to have connectivity, right? So that could be fiber, that could be cellular, 4G, and then 5G eventually, coming up here really soon, which will be a game changer. You've got Wi-Fi, and then you've got low power solutions like Cat-M and NB-IoT that are secure, that will be used to move data from a water meter to the cloud, for instance. So you've got the network component, but you also have to think of AT&T a little differently now. AT&T now is not just a communications provider. AT&T is a technology company now. I mean, we've got our foundry located here. We've got the drive studio located here. So we have innovation centers that are allowing us to develop solutions that go up the stack, right? So while our core business will always be, I think, that connectivity component, I think that you'll see us go up the stack more and more, whether it come to be developing security applications, which are very important, to cloud type applications, to data visualization applications like we've created for Smart Cities, our Smart Cities Operations Center, which aggregates data up into a dashboard so that a mayor can walk into a control center and into a room and actually understand what's going on in the city. And some of the mayors have even said to us, this would be a great thing to put in a public library and give transparency and visibility to all of these smart initiatives that are going on around the city that reduce traffic, that create a safer environment, that help people save money regarding water consumption or energy consumption. And so, you're starting to get mayors across the United States, and in particular in Atlanta, to think outside the box a little bit and make sure that they get the citizens involved, which is really important.
Well, and that's the key, right? The citizens got to feel an impact, because right now I think a lot of people don't understand the technology and the promise, so they see an expense.
Right.
And so how does the city help monetize, or how do they help fund these projects so that everyone's getting on board and they're not constantly fighting over these things?
Yeah, that's actually a really great point, and it's a great question. And I think what we're starting to see across the U.S., you mentioned earlier public-private partnerships, and that's one way to get a community to coalesce around specific goals and objectives, and then allow for foundations to contribute funding, as well as possibly government funding, and then sort of obviously the private sector, and then cities, right? But what we're starting to see is that depending on the solution that's being deployed and the business case around it, we're seeing everything from LED lighting solutions, smart lighting solutions being implemented, that there's no cost to the city. And basically it's a shared risk model. So a large company will invest in the capital expense, put that in, and then receive dollars back from the energy savings that a city would see. That goes to the large company to put the capital up. That's one way. Another way is obviously bonds, right? I mean, but you're seeing bonds being presented to citizens in a different way. You've got these large infrastructure bonds that can help drive signaling initiatives and traditional infrastructure initiatives, right? But then you've also got mini bonds. So think this park that's behind us. If you live by this park, the city of Atlanta could potentially issue a bond that would allow a millennial to invest in a park that's close to their house. And they may be able to invest with a $500 investment versus having it to be a $20,000 investment. So you're getting the community engaged in different ways there. I think you're going to see more money coming from the federal government, frankly. There was $160 million that was announced last September. And then they had the US DOT Smart Cities Challenge, which was another $40 million and then $10 million from Vulcan and another group of partners, AT&T included, participated in that. So, I think you'll start to see more funding come from the government as well. And then, of course, you've obviously got, dollars coming from operational budgets that are based on the tax base, right? So it's going to be a combination of all of them that are really going to drive adoption. But in order to do that, I think, and we were talking downstairs, you've got the same three issues are facing cities, from smart cities actually being adopted as an overall strategy, right? You've got policy, procurement, and funding.
Yes.
So I think over time we'll eventually break down each of those, and those models will change how cities procure, what the policy is that allows them to procure, and then how things are funded, to some of the examples we mentioned earlier. So we're making a lot of progress, and frankly, Atlanta is one of the cities that's leading the way.
Yeah, well, that's very clear to us, and it's a big initiative, right? If we talk about the globe, and then if we just talk about the United States, but I mean, are you growing really rapidly right now, staffing, and what skills are you bringing onto the team?
Yeah, so the business for us is a global business, right? And I'd even say maybe it's more international first, right? So eventually we could serve all markets, but we're not focused on serving all markets today, right? Really focused on North America and then certain parts of Europe, and then moving down into LATAM, right? We are always staffing with great technology leaders, right? So smart cities is extremely complex. It's an ecosystem play, as you know, right? And so it's not just AT&T, it's AT&T and many other companies working together. So that tends to be labor intensive, if you will, right? Managing those relationships, making sure that everybody's in sync, and then actually deploying the projects and getting them to scale, right? So, we're always looking for strong product marketing managers, right? Advocates that live in the cities, that help us spread the word about what we're doing and why it's important for cities to participate in our AT&T Smart Cities framework, in our program. And then, of course, you've always got business development and software developers and technical folks, right? So, those are the areas where we'll be scaling our, headcount over the next, 6 to 18 months.
So you mentioned the ecosystem, and Apple did so well early on with the the apps, and are you trying to seed that type of community and that type of ecosystem?
So not as much an application marketplace, if you will, but we are definitely we definitely recognize that the ecosystem needed is large, right? So we've developed the AT&T Smart Cities framework. One of the pillars in that framework is some initial alliance members like Qualcomm, Cisco, IBM, Intel, GE, right? So some very large companies, but also regionally what we're doing when we go into a city, because for us it is a regional play. It's not just the city of Atlanta, it's the metro Atlanta region. It's not just Chicago, it's all of Chicagoland, right? And then hopefully technologies and adoption scales and you can move that wave and that revolution across the state. But what we're doing is as we go into these cities, we're looking at what some of the smaller, more innovative companies are in the region as well. We're using the large companies as the foundation because their technology is proven, right? And then they also have the financial wherewithal to survive a long project. So you have to be conscious when you bring in startups, you don't want to add to their burn rate.
Yeah.
right? You want to help them.
We know that.
Yeah, you want to help them do well, right? And then that's what's really good for the regional economies. When you bring them in, if you engage them the right way, that gives the local innovators and the startups the opportunity to truly engage and build their business based on that, not have it hurt their business, right? Working with the big companies.
Okay, so AT&T's obviously got global reach and has huge relationships around the United States. Is part of the strategy is perhaps you're working with the utility already on smart grid, and then you start to seep into because they've seen the benefits already?
Yeah. So one of the institutions in every city is the utility, right? And in particular, I mean, Atlanta's awesome because you have Southern Company headquartered here, and you also have Georgia Power, right? Southern Company has Southern Company Innovation Center right here in Atlanta, right on Georgia Tech's campus, right next to the AT&T Foundry, and right next to the Drive Studio. So the awesome thing about that is that we have the opportunity to innovate together, right? And energy and utilities is one of the 5 solution domains that we're focused on at AT&T. And really the utility does sometimes play the anchor because they may actually own the poles that the streetlights are on. They may have the meters that are connected on homes or on businesses, right? So to your point about smart grid, and utilities in some cases like to run their own network, but we also have an offering for utilities that is our private LTE offering. So we actually will provide spectrum to utilities so they don't have to go out and buy it. And then we're working with a partner, Nokia, that will build the hardware that will work on that secure LTE spectrum.
So in bringing all the pieces together, what other advice would you give cities? I mean, does it take a position, a director of innovation or a smart city whatever that might be? Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, well, there are 2 things for cities, right? First and foremost, everybody has to understand that cities are asked to do a lot. The staff inside of cities are asked to do a lot. So they don't have the resources that's needed for them to really go out and execute, right? And then, you have certain positions inside of the city that can help the lead, but it really has to be done from the mayor down and from council, right? Council needs to be involved. The mayors need to be very engaged because there's a lot of silos to break down in the city. So if you have a director of innovation or if you have a director of Smart Cities Atlanta or Smart ATL, whatever each city is going to call it, they can champion inside of city government, but the mayor and council really has to help break down the silos to get them to work together and create a really holistic strategy. And that's what we're seeing. The cities that have a director of innovation or a director of smart cities, it doesn't mean they're going to be successful. It just means that they've created a position, right, that says that they're looking at smart cities more seriously, right? The ones that are doing really well and getting traction and moving from smart projects to actually becoming a smart city are the ones that have top-down support from the mayor and support from council to help break down the silos.
Well, I mean, the promise is incredible. And, the UN predicted 30% growth by 2050 in population, with the majority in cities. We're seeing 70% of carbon, greater than 70% of carbon emissions coming from cities. So there's an imperative from a sustainability and from a population, all sorts of good stuff. So I want to ask you a little bit about public safety then.
Sure.
Right, cameras and privacy and capability. We hear about London having cameras everywhere, and apparently pretty safe city. What is AT&T's position, and what are you encountering here in the States? Or let's just take Atlanta from a camera and public safety perspective, both from a policeman's uniform as well as from cameras mounted on poles and other structures.
Yeah, so public safety is obviously the mayor's first job, right? I mean, every mayor is responsible for keeping their city safe. That's job number 1. Right? So, there's not a mayor that I talk to across the United States or a politician, frankly, globally, that's responsible for keeping people safe that is not doing something today, right? You do have to take into account the citizens' feelings, if you will, as to not wanting to be tracked and monitored everywhere they go. But at the end of the day, you do need to have a very strong public safety solution that's connected, that's giving you real-time data. And that's one of the areas where we're really focused. So there's cities that have cameras in place already that are either connected via 4G LTE, frankly now, or fiber. And I think as you see 5G evolve, right, and actually come to market, you will see less fiber and you'll see more cellular. and you'll actually probably see more cameras, because that will allow you to place cameras a lot easier than if you had to worry about if there was fiber there and whatnot, right? So as people get more comfortable with living in a safe environment, which is really the city's main goal, it's not to track them, right?
Yes,
It's to keep them safe. And unfortunately, as you see incidents, people allow for more cameras to keep them safer, right? So I think that that we will see citizens move more towards embracing a safer environment than fighting it.
So Mike, could you describe what the 5 pillars are of the Smart City platform at AT&T?
Yeah, sure. So the 5 solution domains that we focus on are energy and utilities, traffic and transportation, public safety, citizen engagement, and infrastructure, right? And those are the solution domains that sit inside of our AT&T Smart Cities framework, which is where we help cities develop a holistic strategy that includes connectivity, applications, those vertically integrated solutions that add value, and then of course making sure that we've got the right alliance members that can help to go out and implement those solutions in the cities.
So do you have a leader in each of those segments who can help champion that?
Yeah, so we have, my group is responsible for making sure that the messaging is in the market, right? And we've created that thought leadership position from AT&T and the Smart Cities group. And so we do have solution domain experts that can come in and help actually sit down with the city and help them frame out a strategy.
Okay, and citizens engagement. Explain that one. I think we can understand public safety, transportation, utilities, maybe not where it's all going, but citizen engagement, that's one that I'm curious.
Yeah.
What can you do there?
So a lot of different ways to engage citizens, right? One could be a Wi-Fi solution, right? So there's more cities now that are looking to have pervasive Wi-Fi, right? Especially in areas like this.
Yeah.
Right? Public parks, high traffic areas. Citizens are looking for Wi-Fi, cities want to provide that. So a Wi-Fi solution is one. Citizen engagement from the sense of when you implement an LED lighting solution, you can also implement air quality sensors, right? That are monitoring the air and pollutants in the air. You can take that information from a certain area in real time. If a citizen has opted in to get that alert, you could alert a citizen that the pollen count is high at this park that you live by. Don't take your kid, right? If they've got allergies to pollen, right?
Sensors are picking
the sensors are there picking that up, and that's getting pushed back real time.
That's relevant,
to an application, right, that a citizen has. So I mean, that's citizen engagement, traffic alerts, right, if you will. As simple as it sounds, at the end of the day, there's a lot behind the scenes that goes into helping a citizen choose either the right route or the right mode of transportation, right, to get somewhere in an efficient manner. So those are citizen engagement type solutions that we can provide and help cities provide.
Barcelona, which has gotten a lot of the publicity, God bless them.
Yeah, they do a great job with that marketing.
Yes, sure, and they do, and we've studied it quite a bit. They claim, and I tend to believe them, that it also helps their hospitality industry as well, this citizen engagement, this information that's available. Is that sort of the vision as well, is just to make the city more navigated, more informed for a visitor?
Yeah,
safer?
Yeah, especially in Atlanta, right? Or any major market. I mean, if you think about Atlanta, you've got the busiest airport in the world. 85% of the traffic in the Atlanta airport, roughly, right, will not leave the airport. But the 15% that does is spending some good quality time in Atlanta, and a lot of them are here for events, right? I mean, you've got the Georgia World Congress Center right here, you've got the Dome, you've got the baseball stadium. We'll have a new football facility, we'll have a soccer facility, we'll have a new baseball facility. We've had the Final Four, we'll have a Super Bowl just announced. So, in Atlanta, a lot of the engagement is around the events. And so you've got your visitors that come in that are your tourists or that are here for business. But I mean, think about when you come for those events, or if you're trying to get those events to come to your city. So you want to talk about an economic development impact, right? When a major event like a Super Bowl or a Final Four comes to a city, those are all factors that go into the NCAA or the NFL choosing what cities to bring an event to.
And they actually bring their own network requirements, right? They come to you and say, hey, I need these hotels, I need X, Y, and Z to have such capability.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they want the area to be wired in a certain way. They want to make sure coverage is there. You know, I mean, because obviously you're using a lot more bandwidth,
Sure.
right? I mean, you've got more people, terabyte, yeah,
3
exactly.
hours, right?
And you've got people in a lot of people in small areas. So you've got the density, you know, so you've got to make sure you've got the small cell coverage, and you know, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into a large sporting body choosing. You know, an area. I mean, frankly, we had the Olympics right here in Centennial Park 20 years ago. You know, and this is a commercial for Atlanta almost.
And perhaps the only city
20
that
years
really
ago we
turned
had
the
the Olympics right here in
something great,
Centennial Park. That's right. I mean, it was
sustainable.
Yeah, last U.S. city to do it. So it's been great. You know, to have the Summer Olympics. Yeah.
So you mentioned a very important word, and I think everybody needs to focus on this word, and that's density. Hence, dense networks. So.
It's good lead-in for you.
Yes,
there, huh?
it was.
Okay.
I've been waiting a few minutes to see if I could get him to say the word. So thank you, Mike.
No problem.
So you know how important you touched on it, but I mean the stadiums, the AT&T network is probably the most dense in the world. Well, at least in the United States.
Yeah.
How do you get all these disparate elements to come together within your corporation to create that infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean, look, operators or carriers, they're large companies. Right? Mm-hmm. So the net of it is, in order to get the support around the organization, it needs to be a business initiative that everybody feels is important, right? Mm-hmm. And so with smart cities, it was one that, you know, CEOs of different businesses rallied around, our chairman rallied around, our chief sustainability officer rallied around, our head of networks rallied around, because really at the end of the day, you need to truly have a very, very strong and substantial network in an area that's going to have millions of devices connected to it, right? And a tremendous amount of data in real time that you can't have latency, right, associated with passing through that network that needs to be secure. So it really did take a village inside of AT&T to sit down and say, hey, you know, this is an initiative that makes sense. It's an initiative that will change the world. And we as AT&T, as the leader in the U.S. from an IoT perspective, and frankly globally, have the ability to go out and really drive forward with this Smart Cities business unit vertical. So it takes a village internally.
Yeah, and Atlanta has got that ecosystem. We met with the GSMA today as well, and they located their U.S. headquarters here. You've got a major event coming up, GSMA Live, is that what they call it?
Yeah, GSMA Mobility Live. Yeah, a large regional event we have, frankly, that pulls together between 12 and 1,500 people. It's really focused on all things mobility, from true mobile, right? Consumer engagement on the phone, to sponsored data, to advertising and content viewing via mobile, to IoT and wearables and smart cities. So it's the one event that we have here in Atlanta that's mobile technology focused, that really pulls the whole ecosystem together. And frankly, we get people coming from all over the world to come to this event. Last year we had Glenn Lurie, the CEO of AT&T Mobility, and Eddie Q, who is an SVP with Apple, and they were actually responsible for doing the initial AT&T and Apple iPhone deal.
It's not a bad partnership.
No, so we get guys like there that, you know, they
little
come,
players. Huh?
Yeah, exactly, and they're great, and they tell, you know, they have great experiences and tell great stories, and people learn from them. And you know, I mean, we usually have between 80 and 120 speakers that are here for 2 days. The GSMA's participation has been great because that gives it a global flair. They have obviously Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, but you know, they come here and they work with us on the event. It's been great. It's been awesome.
That's terrific. Well, Dense Network is going to be kicking off our social think tank with a one-day event here in Atlanta, October 11th, and we're really happy that AT&T is going to be with us on that day. So, Mike, I want to thank you very much.
No, thank you very much.
This has been
Appreciate
great.
it.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to Atlanta.